All right. Farha Khalidi, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. First off, wanted to talk to you about this new Louis Theroux documentary. Yeah, just tell me your thoughts about it, because I feel like there are a lot of these a lot of the people that they mention in the documentary you're very familiar with.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm Farha Khalidi. You can find me at onlyfans.com/Farha Khalidi.
Give her the introduction.
That's just that. The doc. I thought it was crap, personally.
Really?
I thought it was really horrible. I mean, we talked about it a little bit the other day. Like, now that you've seen it all, maybe you can give me like your informed opinion on whether you thought it was crap.
Right.
But the main criticism I have of it is that I feel like his whole thesis is that he feels like these people are like, quote unquote, emptily chasing these shallow pursuits like money, clicks, women and stuff. But then I feel like he gives them each like these really sensationalized glamour shots, like each time they come on, like with HS Tiki Taki, you like the camera like pans his whole body when he's like working out with like Jay Wall, Justin Waller. He like rides it on the Lambo and like slow-mo, and he like has him say like he made $30 million that year or something like that. And with Sneeko, the Sneeko edit especially, like I wonder if we can like pull it up if you're able to like open Netflix and stuff on here. But I just thought like he glamorized them so much, and obviously he's not in charge of the stylizing probably that much. Like it's also like obviously hosted on Netflix, like I'm sure they had like some say, but I thought like it was kind of hypocritical to make them kind of hype them up as being so cool for having like money, clicks, whatever. Unless, to be generous, I thought like, okay, it's one thing to start like that and then contrast it by rug pulling and being like, this is how the internet sees them, as these like hyped up like cool people, and then kind of like poke at that image. I don't feel like he really poked at it. Like he poked at them in the sense of like he made them seem morally bankrupt. Like obviously HS Tiki Taki admits that like he doesn't care. Jay Wall admits that like he's not marrying this woman who is pretty much dependent on him and in this polygynous relationship. And then Sneeko obviously comes off slightly stupid because he talks about the eye thing, like the magazine conspiracy thing. Yeah. But I feel like he doesn't make them look uncool necessarily, but he makes them look like morally bankrupt, which isn't the same thing. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't like show an aura loss, and I feel like it's so disappointing because I actually think he makes them look cooler than how the internet even sees them. Like when I go on Twitter, if I were to search Sneeko, it's people calling him gay, a cuck, talking about how he like gay modeled as a fake Muslim. It's people watching them like do that Hail Hitler thing at the club where everyone was like, this is like the death of the manosphere. Like they come off so cringy. And desperate here. So I feel like he did more of a vanity project for them than they deserve. So it didn't even capture like the actual zeitgeist or hype around them. And then also it didn't counter it with like poking at that image. Like I feel like it would have been so much funnier and more accurate if he had like these people like Jay Wall like riding on his Lambo, or had the scene of Sneeko shadowboxing and didn't put like this cool music and edit over it, and just had them like with dead silence to just show like how try hard they are. But I feel like instead he just like really wanted to show like, ooh, look how cool these people are that I have in this doc. That's my first criticism.
I disagree, only because I think by demonstrating how they're morally bankrupt, by showcasing all of the clips of just the various insane things that they've said, to the average person, like I know for instance my family, like some of my family members watched it, no idea who these people are. Okay. So from their perspective, they see the vanity shots as being like almost
cringy
like
in itself.
Yeah, but also just signals about their character and how self-obsessed they are. And I do think that there was enough contrast in just like, yeah, I guess you could frame it as morally bankrupt, for instance, of how they, you know, demean OnlyFans women and say how, you know, how horrible it is, but then simultaneously, you know, profit off of it, and how, you know, even their internal logic in many ways doesn't make sense. I think I know what you mean though, how you're like, well, you're like, some of the internet sees them as less cool and cringy in many ways, that like, for instance, like Sneeko's a cuck, or they're just not as they're not as cool as they think they are. But I think some of that framing, that's like almost from a right-wing lens or perspective in how they look at some of the manosphere, like the more tradcon guys who are like, well, because Sneeko attempted, to do polyamory once, that's what makes him
and because he
uncool.
like modeled and stuff, it made him too femme.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Whereas like I think that like, it's like that's not necessarily what makes him uncool. It's just
that's just people being like manospheric in themselves by being like, like he's a cuck because he let his woman like do this thing. But I feel like the people who criticize like the Hail Hitler stuff, I feel like that was like everyone. That was like the right, the left. It was definitely alt-right people, because I saw people being like, this is the brownification of the alt-right or something. But then I feel like liberals also made fun of them, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was the Hail Hitler Kanye West thing. I think it was just also like, they don't, I think they just don't realize how like cringy it comes across, but also like it's like ridiculous. But that's sort of the way I see a lot of the alt-right internet sphere in and of itself. Is it's almost like built on several layers of irony where you can never tell to what degree of sincerity they're being.
That's true. Yeah. And they're also not even like morally condemning them for playing Hail Hitler. They're more so saying like, oh, they're cringy. Like they just don't come off cool.
One thing though I would say is that I think would be an apt argument or criticism of the film is because it came out like in this day and age. Whereas I felt like it feels to me as though like Manosphere, Redpill, these sort of internet personalities in particular were almost more relevant or big in like the 2022, 2023 range. Whereas now their focus is less about women and dating. It feels like, especially with like Myron and stuff like that and Sneeko, it's all explicitly just political now. And they even mentioned in the film Sneeko's like denounced the Red Pill. So it's like, why are we almost circling back to these people in a way?
That, and like I think Sneeko tweeted saying something like, I told them that Manosphere is dead, but they really wanted a Manosphere doc, so I hyped it up and talked about like these types of topics. Speaking of which, I feel like they pivoted to like the Israel stuff. So we can, now that you've watched it all, I'm curious what you thought of that infamous scene where HS Tiki Taki says eloquently, "Are Israel committing a genocide?" And then Louis just kind of stands there and says whatever. I will say, Jack told me today that Louis has done a documentary about the West Bank.
It's called The Settlers. That's actually how I'm familiar with Louis' work. I would agree with your, and like our initial conversation was how Louis failed to just even address it or respond, but especially respond immediately in a way that would just knock down whatever criticism HS was throwing at him. But I do think it was obviously
HS doesn't care.
Right. But I do think it was obviously anti-Semitic, because even in the aftermath of him not answering, he said, "See, you're controlled." And
you're
then
a puppet.
But he even later says you're controlled by the Jews. He does. He does say that like almost quickly after the fact.
Yeah. No, I get that. I feel like he could have just said like something, but then at one hand it's kind of like, okay, why is he at the mercy of this like 23-year-old homophobic asshole to just have to prove himself to him and be like, no, like I condemn them, you know what I mean? So I get that on one hand, but it did, like, his temperament did come off like or his mannerisms did come off like he was uncomfortable with answering, and not just because it was being asked by this piece of shit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get that. What other criticisms do you have of the film? Or is there anything that you appreciated about it? Because I think from our perspective, like knowing who these people are for quite a long time, like it's easy to almost like poke holes in where like how some of the criticism feels almost like surface level or falls flat, especially in regards to their ideology. Like I definitely don't think that these guys are watching this being like, damn, this ruined my reputation. If anything, they're like, I have this like silly Netflix documentary made about me, which is fair enough, but maybe it just like informs the broader public about this side of the internet that is increasingly disturbing.
That could be it. I was talking about it with Jack, who's British, and he was telling me, because like Louis is British and like his audience is mostly British, he was saying like no one in Britain knows who these people are. Like he told me, he was like, I didn't know who any of these people were until you told me about them, like the people in the doc. So he was saying like, to you it's surface level because you're chronically online, but he was like, for me in my country, like we don't, like we just look at this and we think like this is such a circus and stuff. So I think there's that.
But isn't Andrew Tate British?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe I think Jack is maybe just more exposed to more academic circles, less of the brain rot.
That could be true. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he never knew who like Sneeko or Myron or like Jay Wall or any of these people were. He probably knew Andrew Tate. Yeah, that's a good point. I
didn't know who HS was, which was interesting because he was like the center of the documentary.
He was the center. I'm guessing that decision happened because he was like probably the biggest streamer about a year and a half ago, which is probably when they made that like executive decision to put him on board, because he was like blowing up because he was streaming a lot with like Neon. I don't know if you saw that viral scene where like he like beats up Zerka or kind of.
It sounds vaguely familiar.
Like Zerka like ran up on him because Zerka needs attention, and because HS was blowing up and went to stream with him, Zerka started stalking him on stream and would like show up with his own stream, and like he showed up at a restaurant he was at, threw like a water bottle at him and his date, and then like, you know, runs up on him, and HS just like flips him. And he didn't, and then like Zerka,
what? Flips Zerka? Zerka's a pretty guy.
Huge. Yeah.
Oh my god. Geez.
So that's how I knew HS was from like that era.
Yeah, and also isn't HS British too?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have the same like pull in Britain, because in the documentary he was living in Spain, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I didn't even know where that was.
But my other criticisms. Oh yeah, you asked like if there's anything good I liked about it.
Right.
I really liked the scene where it's like him and his mom's like, don't embarrass me, like clean up, like I didn't raise you like this, and HS is like scrubbing the floor and he's like, mommy, I don't want a juice. Like I thought that was sweet. And I also thought it was a good.
That towards the end, because that's when his mom came in. I
think.
It
was at the end. It was like, it wasn't, Louis wasn't in the room. It was kind of looked as if there was like a Ring camera recording it, but I guess they got like consent to just put cameras in the house or something. Okay, so it was before Louis got there, and his mom's like, clean up this mess. Like, you didn't see that part? Mm-mm. His mom's like, clean up this mess.
I guess I don't recall it, but
it was right at the end. Yeah, she was like, clean this up. Like, I didn't raise you like this. Go drink a juice. And he's like, mommy, I don't want one. And it was like so sweet and endearing, and like, not endearing, obviously. It's endearing, but it's also like it works well for the doc because it shows like he talks all this shit about, you know, like don't submit to women. I'm guessing he says that stuff, you know. And then he's obviously like, you know, so respectful towards his mom, and he worships her in a certain way. And his
mom like super disagrees with everything that he does, but then simultaneously she gets defensive about her son. She's like, you know, she's like, you're trying to make him look bad, or you're doing to Louis, you know? Yeah,
she was saying something like, that's why you want him on, because he's controversial. But then she was like talking about how like judging the body count of men and women differently is it, she said it's extraordinary or something, you know? But that was the one scene that I liked full stop. If I don't know if there's anything else. The other scenes, like, I don't know, they just felt like kind of like his pushback was so basic. Like when Jay Wall was like, I look around you at the Miami landscape, like everything here was built by men, like designed by men, and Louis like, do we know that for sure?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, come on, that's it. Like
yeah, no. I mean, I guess that the only other documentary I've ever seen of Louis was the Settler one. And to be frank, like that's also kind of how it was in that one. But I think a lot of his journalism is just about like getting them to say things that they just normally wouldn't say, or just, you know, like poking a little bit, and then also doing, you know, a thorough amount of like background research to some degree.
Yeah, I could see that.
There's a little bit of that, you know.
And he's not there to debate, and I feel like part of what makes him so disarming is that he's not super aggressive, so people open up around him because he's this kind of like nerdy guy who shows up, you know what I mean? They don't feel like intimidated.
Right, like he was just talking to that one girl in the room when Myron and them were like, you can't talk to him anymore. Yeah, and like he's not doing it in a way that, you know, it makes Myron and them look controlling. Exactly.
I thought the Sneeko part where Sneeko's talking about the magazine and the eyes and stuff, I think like, again, maybe I'm brain rotted, but I feel like it's not enough to just like stand and point at a conspiracist right now and just be like, look, he looks crazy, and have that like do the work. Because I feel like right now, like conspiracists kind of have the culture war, like they're winning it because of like the Epstein stuff, and like people, you know, like people are talking about how like Pizzagate was right because there were all these mentions of like pizza and stuff in the Epstein files, and then obviously all, you know, so like Sneeko talking about how the world is ran by people who are like satanic, like he doesn't mean like literally magical, but when he's saying people who have literally like sold their soul in the sense of like, you know, like they worship the wrong things, they abuse children, all these things, like to a young American audience, like Louis just being like, oh, come on, you're so far gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not, maybe it would have worked like 10 years ago, but I feel like right now it just makes it look like Sneeko is on the side of not truth, but it looks like Louis doesn't have like a good rebuttal, but also like what would the rebuttal be to someone who says something like that? I don't know. Do you think I'm just brain rotted, or do you get what I mean?
I do get it. It just depends, I guess, what the intention is, because I think that like if the documentary's intention is just exposing these sorts of figures to a general audience, it does the job perfectly. But if it's intended to like bring people over who are a little bit bought into any of that, then I wouldn't say it did that job. I just don't know if that, if that was the intention of the documentary.
Yeah, I don't feel like their goal at all was to like de-radicalize young men, even though that's the group that they're always pearl clutching about, is like the fact that their audience is young men. I feel like it was more to just create a laughing stock out of them for, again, like a British or American audience of people who already are like so on the other side of the spectrum,
But do you think that could be potentially effective? I mean, I guess it also kind of loops into another question I have, is like, why do you think these Manosphere people are so popular? Do you think that like there's this genuine almost like suffering that a young demographic of men are going to, and that the appeal is rooted in any sort of justification?
No, I think I think like the male loneliness epidemic is obnoxious. I think it's overblown. I think it's racist. I think it's misogynistic. I think it's manipulative. I think like well, okay, I saw like this interview Charlie Kirk did on Tucker Carlson maybe like a month before he passed. I don't know if you watched it. Like one of his final big interviews. And
what was it, with Patrick Bet-David?
It was just on him. It was just Kirk on Tucker's show.
Oh, on Tucker Carlson. Oh no, I didn't.
Okay, he was talking about. He says like men, specifically white men, are being demoralized. Like they're not going to school, they're not working, they're like retreating from society because they've been so just like beaten down by talk of like toxic masculinity and HR departments and like sexual harassment. And then at the same time, like you go to Charlie Kirk's Twitter and he'll post photos of just like random like Black immigrants in America and be like, does this look like America to you guys? And I'm like, okay, so if by your logic you think the term toxic masculinity is enough to disable white men and make them like wholesale retreat from society and quit school, quit working, what do you think like telling Black people that them being Black is like inherently incompatible with Americanness does for like the morale of Black people? You know what I mean? Right. And I think that's why I find it like even Erica Kirk, she said like the other week, she said like, men, like stand up for yourselves, specifically white men. Do you know what I'm talking about? Some speech where she was like, don't let anyone like make you feel bad about yourself. Or
I don't recall, but I can imagine her saying something like that. I do think, like obviously the diagnosis isn't appropriate. I also find the whole, well, this is just a reaction to how far feminism has gone.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. I think is utterly ridiculous. But I think that there is some truth in just the identification that like there is some sort of
male malaise.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better term, maybe just genuine, loneliness among men, and that's leading them to attach themselves into like radicalized rabbit holes. And like my interpretation of it is going to be like, I think as a leftist, it's usually going to be to some degree economic. I think that people are in many ways just like not in community spaces like they used to be to some degree. Have no aren't finding a lot of purpose or fulfillment in just mass consumerism, and then attempts at working a normal 9-to-5, and even like that sort of pathway has been ruined from them. But then at the same time, I've also seen that it seems like this sort of trend also exists in pretty economically developed nations, pretty like nations with robust social safety nets, or like great third spaces too. So I'm like, maybe that's also not a good explanatory variable either.
I just feel like you were saying, they turn to like these radical spaces and stuff. I just feel like they only talk about it when it's like, again, like not to be a broken record, when it's like the white people doing it, because when I shouldn't have said that made it sound like racist, but I was saying when
the whites
when the whites turn into like I feel like it's very glamorized in the media. It's like male loneliness and radicalization, and it's like a white guy donning like a swastika on his arm, but it's like they don't talk, for instance, as much about how like, okay, what about how black loneliness leads to guys joining gangs, because they literally come from you know, if they come from a broken home or something, or have like a shitty education, they're more likely to join a gang. But that's just seen as like a cultural issue or like a genetic thing if you're alt-right. But then like they only talk about radicalization from loneliness if it's, again, only the alt-right anti-Semitic version, but not those other things. Like Kirk is the one who died saying like, well, what we're talking about, gang violence, you know what I mean? But then he'll like coddle people who turn to, again, like the more alt-right movements.
I mean, it's literally the meme of like a white school shooter. It's like, what went wrong? What happened? Or the fact that Erica Kirk says, I forgive you to the young boy who did it. But it was like, if he was, you know, a minority, it would have been because of radical Islam or I definitely agree. But then do you think that there's at least any merit to the idea that men broadly across races are in, because let's just like take, for example, and this may be an interesting conversation for you as someone who was previously a virgin for quite a while.
You're talking about incels?
Or just the lack of, I think, sex within our generation has been drastically reduced. And like, I don't know if that is necessarily causing a bunch of social dysfunction, but it could be a bellwether for, like, you know, larger loneliness between men and women. And it
could. I guess my first point would be like, if male loneliness exists, and obviously does exist for some people from certain backgrounds and stuff, the entire male loneliness movement vilifies the people who struggle the most. So like I said, whether it's the black guys, or for instance, like Myron Gaines, like his entire platform is built off of like championing for like men who don't feel like they don't have a voice in the dating market. But if you go to his Twitter, he's constantly shitting on Indian people and calling them jeets. And it's like, what gender of men fares worse on dating apps? It's Indian men. So if you want to, you know, talk about how sex recession maybe like lowers men's morale, you know, like Indian men are literally being shat on by the alt-right, by the manosphere, by the men who claim they're looking out for men who are being punished by the sex recession. So the only target audience or that they have in mind is literally just like white men, you know?
Yeah, I could see that.
So I say the entire movement. So just to be clear, like, I know that doesn't speak to whether male loneliness exists as a statistic. Like, I know obviously it still exists. I guess what I'm saying is like the entire discourse around it, like, leaves out, like, excludes the people who I think are actually suffering from it. Not that I think like you necessarily suffer from a sex recession, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I think like if you want to talk about, well, men are lonely because, you know, they're being left out of the dating market, it's like, okay, well then why are we, you know, shitting on Jeets? Why are we making fun of like JD Vance's wife on Twitter and making fun of Indian people and all these things? You know, if it exists, like, why, you know, and it leads to radicalization, like why shit on black people and stuff? But yeah.
Okay, well then what do you think the cause is for, maybe if there is some authenticity to like a genuine shift in male attitudes? I think even recently there was I mean, this probably is more or less an effect on from these online communities and online figures that we've been talking about, but recently there was like some polling that I think Gen Z men relative to like millennial, Gen X and boomers are way more likely to believe it's like a woman's place to stay in the household. Did
I saw that.
Did you see any of that? Yeah,
I did. One, I do think it's partly a racial thing. Like, I think it's the fact that like when you look at all the issues that the manosphere focuses on in terms of like men are falling behind in school, men are unemployed, I feel like, again, these are issues that have like affected black people and Hispanic people for a long time. And I feel like right now it's seen as a bigger issue because I feel like now it's starting to creep up towards white men. Like, it's not that male education levels are falling behind wholesale. Like, that's already been happening for black men. Like, black women have already matriculated at a 2-to-1 rate to black men, but now that it's starting to affect white men, and they're also starting to see like a lower graduation rate, I feel like now they're like, okay, well, this is a problem, because before that was a cultural thing or a genetic thing, but it's like now clearly the culture must be disordered if like white men are also the ones who face these issues that black people are suffering from, whether it be like, drug abuse, alcoholism, not getting married, being divorced, losing child custody, all these things. So I think it's just the fact that like a lot of white guys are now being treated like black guys, but maybe that's too woke of a take, you know?
I think that's to some degree fair, but in a sense it's like not even entirely, because I guess they still they don't. Well, maybe
it's the illusion of thinking they're being treated like them.
Right. Yeah. That they're under some sort of I guess mistreatment or oppression on the basis of their gender. Interesting. I don't know.
What do you think about it? Because I feel like you very much disagree, obviously, with everything I'm saying.
No, I don't disagree necessarily. I mean, I do think that, I don't know, is like, I think that there's probably some real impact of just the way that society has been reorganized in a way where it's just it feels so easy for men to almost forego in interpersonal relationships and friendships in particular. Like I think women, like single women in particular, are in large part happier and more okay and content with being single than single men, and that probably has something to do with friendship, like platonic friendships between women being more fulfilling than platonic friendships between men.
I saw a stat that was saying like when they've surveyed men and women and they say if you have a problem you want to would you open up to your spouse about it, and both men and women said yes, but then when they asked them would you open up about it to someone else, like a family member or a friend, only women said yes. So men pretty much put all their their eggs in the basket of like women providing them, I'm not gonna say emotional labor because that makes it sound parasitic when it doesn't have to be.
No, but
just on them. So then when they're lacking in relationships, they feel like more alone, while women, I feel like they don't need it as much to get their social fix, you know, which is kind of also something I hate about the male loneliness discourse is like they only focus on like the sexual romantic side of male loneliness, but not the platonic side. Like I feel like it's never really talked about like male friendships. They just talk about how like 20% of women or 20% of men are banging like 80% of women and stuff, but you never hear, you know, like why is it then so many men are apparently like leaving out other men from friendships? Like clearly it's not just like, you know, it's not just because those men only want to be friends with guys who are 6 foot and make 6 figures. So obviously like there's something else these men have in their character that's off-putting or like making it hard for them to make friends, you know?
Right. Yeah. And then a lot of the community and like the figures almost like double down on the very things that are contributing to the problem. They'll say that, like it's gay if you open up to your male friends, or or even that like you shouldn't live with the spouse. Although there does seem to be now this sort of divide between like parts of the manosphere that ended up becoming more traditionalist or religious to some degree. Yeah. And other parts of the manosphere that still double down on talking points of like, actually you should be maximizing the number of partners you have.
I think tradcon is just red pill in sheep's clothing. I think it's the same movement.
Right.
Like, I don't think they're actually like promoting, for the most part. Maybe there are some figures who you're referring to. I don't think they're ever really promoting monogamy. I think they're promoting it for women, but I don't think they're promoting it for men. Like I feel like the fact that like I see Candace Owens and Michael Knowles go on like Fresh and Fit or whatever, and they offer like virtually no pushback to the host. Like Candace Owens said nothing to Myron Gaines, but instead just sat there like arguing with the strippers about their daddy issues. And Michael Knowles, like at most he'll do like this buddy thing with Brian where he's just like, oh, you should get married, man. But then that's it. And then the rest of the show he's just like shitting on the women. Tucker Carlson, I saw posted something on Instagram like defending Andrew Tate and saying people are against him for promoting a high testosterone lifestyle or something.
Wait, who said that?
Tucker Carlson.
Oh, no way.
And he's tradcon.
Yeah.
Candace Owens obviously is like obsessed with him and probably has a crush on him and stuff. And then like same with like all these Ben Shapiro. I think Ben Shapiro probably gives like the most amount of like genuine pushback to the red pill, but even then from the tradcon side, I mean.
And maybe like Trent Horn to some degree.
Yeah, probably. I haven't watched his like. Has he talked about Red Pill?
I think so. I only say that because I saw a video of his where he shit on people who say things like repeal the 19th. He thinks it's really stupid, and I was like, that's kind of, and like he kind of railed against like people like he made like a slight against Andrew Wilson in the video, and Andrew Wilson is supposedly, well, I guess you would classify him as more probably tradcon than quote unquote.
He goes by
Redpill.
paleocon, whatever that means.
Yeah, I know. That's like, you know, that's what Nick Fuentes used to call himself too. Paleoconservative.
Do you think Andrew got it from him, or was that like a whole thing, like a movement?
It was like a thing. I don't know. I think a paleocon was just like we're a genuine conservative. It was just like our social conservatism is not
it goes
bogged
further
down
back
by
than
liberalism.
trad, right?
Exactly. Like it's
Okay.
like really, we're not. We are, you know, genuinely because like I think conservatives within like the 2010s were like, they would still, you know, say things like, yeah, everyone can vote. Yeah, everyone should be treated equal under the law. Yes, I believe in democracy. But now they're just like, no, democracy is dumb.
Yeah.
Not everyone should vote. They're like, not even just women shouldn't even be able to vote, but only like either they'll say something like net taxpayers should be able to vote, or it'll be like property owners.
Yeah. That's what Andrew says, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw like Trent made
a video.
I saw him reacting to like Andrew calling him like, he called him like a Ned Flanders conservative or something, whatever that means.
Andrew called Trent that?
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Maybe he's saying he's just like too
dorky.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, I do love all the like intra tradcon beefing and stuff.
Yeah, no, there is quite a lot of it. But what do you think about their pivot? Because I feel like a lot of these figures, and I think we mentioned earlier, what do you think about a lot of their pivot into just going into politics? It feels like the movement to some degree already feels pretty dead. Like Pearl, I think, has been well established as just like a lying grifter. I don't think anyone takes her seriously anymore. Like, I don't know. Maybe I say this because I was.
Yeah, you debated her, right?
Yeah. I debated her on Jubilee, and like it just feels to me like she says the most outlandish things. Where, and I think that Myron and a lot of these guys do it. I think there's various degrees to which they're all grifting, but her, it's so over the top. I can't be bought into the idea that there's probably some sincerity there, but there's no way.
Yeah.
It's even as high as someone like Myron, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought like she comes off somewhat sincere just because her marketing is so specific. Like she's always beefing with like tradwives on Twitter and stuff. Like you saw that group chat, right, about the Sarah Stock drama?
Right. Yeah. Explain that, because
the Sarah Stock stuff.
Yeah. Or to those who aren't familiar with it.
Oh, so Sarah Stock is this whore who went on. Was she on? Did you do that Jubilee episode?
No.
With Sam Cedar?
No,
obviously not. Yeah,
it was all right-wing.
Yeah. And she blew up because I don't know if you noticed, she was in the background of like other Jubilee videos prior, but she never like went up to stage.
Oh, okay.
So she goes on Sam Cedar. She gets all her talking points from like Elijah Schaefer, which I just like knew before I even like saw this come out, because she can barely like string a sentence together. She's like shaking like a chihuahua while she gives the white nationalism talk. But like obviously the Groypers eat it up because she's like blonde and white and stuff, and they just think like I don't know, they just like worship her and stuff. But yeah, so she blew up after that, and then she tweeted something on Twitter saying like porn stars, a lot of porn viewers are underage boys. Porn stars are pedophiles. And I replied and I was like, okay, like some of the content on the hub is minors. Are all porn viewers pedophiles? And she goes, no, a 17-year-old is not a child. And I was like, what? I didn't even give an age. And I was just like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I didn't even give an age. And she goes, you don't know what the definition of pedophilia is. It's not just being attracted to a 7. And I was like, I didn't even mention it, but because her whole identity is to pander to Groyper, she has to go on this whole like what's called a phebophile, like shoehorn it in like that ephemophile justification. Because obviously she can't just say like vilify porn viewers too, because then she'd be bashing guys, and that's her whole fan base. But she can bash porn stars and call them pedophiles because maybe a child is watching their content. Whatever.
If anything, it's gotta be the inverse. It like the inverse makes more sense, that of the viewers are more pedophilic than the person creating the content.
It's also more morally bankrupt. Like it's way less bad, not to be controversial, for a 14-year-old to see a 20-year-old get naked than for a 20-year-old guy to be watching a 14-year-old get naked.
Or
you know
even
what
if
I
they
mean?
are 17 or 16 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
No, a lot of them are willing to die pretty hard on that hill. I don't know if you know, but like Andrew Wilson like doesn't believe in consent technically or something.
I saw his reaction to the Tilly Kyla video.
It's not even like that. To be frank, I don't know. I don't know all the niche details in regards to that. I've obviously seen the clips, but I have seen his debate specifically with Oliver, who's like a left-wing creator. And in that debate, Andrew Wilson doubles down in that like it wouldn't be bad for, like, for example, a 40 or 50-year-old man to go on a date with like an 18-year-old woman. And the reason, and like Oliver was pushing back on that just to say that like it's not like there's a magical, it's not like the day you turn 18 all of a sudden your brain chemistry becomes as fully developed. And it's not to say that we should make it illegal to do so, because I think with age of consent laws, a lot of it's about like pragmatism, but it's not necessarily what is moral. So like we have to have some sort of threshold of when you're legally considered an adult. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, your long-term thinking and all of the things that come with consent are necessarily all formatted at that point. But Andrew's thing was the only thing that could make something, like, for instance, when Oliver asked him, well, then what would be wrong with you sleeping with like a 16-year-old or
as if they're
17?
not married? Is that what he said?
No, he said because they're not like sexually developed, basically.
What does that even mean?
They're not like their reproductive
at 16.
It's not like
isn't that their prime technically?
I think his argument was that it wasn't quite like when they're primed or ready or something like that. But and I wish Oliver was able to get to this, because it's like obviously like it's like, okay, so if just in a theoretical sense, like if that means a 16 or 17-year-old girl, you knew for sure that she was quote unquote physiologically ready or whatever, then that would make it moral, because he doesn't believe in this concept of consent. And
or like if a 13-year-old went through like an early puberty or something, like would that make it okay?
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. I feel like I didn't know his view on consent, but in the Tilly reaction, he showed a clip of him talking to some girl in whatever podcast, and he asks her, if a guy and a girl are both drunk and they hook up, like, are they raping each other? And she goes, yes. And he goes, what? So I thought that's what people were kind of like. I thought people were mad at his consent take because of that. And then also the fact he says he like hooks up with Rachel Wilson before she wakes up, and people say that's rape. And like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't feel like if you get someone's consent, like something like morning head is rape.
Yeah, there's definitely nuance to that, especially with like a partner that you've been with long term, and they've like almost preconditionally consented to it. To some degree. There's definitely variance, but I think with Andrew, it's like hard to give him the benefit of the doubt, or grant him some sort of good faith interpretation of what he means.
No, for sure. I am curious how that lawsuit is gonna pan out.
I know, same. So Clavicular, what do you think about Clav? Because to me, when he first like came on as like this new internet personality, I was like, oh great, here's like another one of these Redpill personalities, for lack of a better term. But he's kind of markedly different than a lot of them in various ways. His focus seems to be on looks maxing rather than all these other random markers, and he's also not explicitly political whatsoever. What's your
I feel like he's not. The first time I saw him was that like Knowles interview he did, because I saw that clip go viral on Twitter where Knowles was like going off about trans people, and he says like, you just spiked your cortisol thinking about trans people. So I thought he like, if anything, was like left leaning, or at least like fully apolitical.
Right.
I feel like he probably is more conservative
for sure
than liberal, just because, or at least he's like, the way he talks about women, he's obviously sexist and stuff. I think it's random that like he's part of the Red Pill movement, You know, I think it's just
Yeah.
like, I think he's heartwarming to a lot of incel types in the sense of like he has like that incel personality, but obviously he's good looking. So I feel like they just find it interesting to see someone like them in the body of someone not like them, like go about the world
Right.
and have this like fantasy where they can just like pull women all day
He
and
uses
stuff.
the chronically online language and lingo, and yeah, it's like he's playing the game, so to speak, that a lot of even like these red pill incel influencer types, like the sort of language that they use, Chad, Stacy's, you know, maxing.
I feel like I learned a lot of the language through watching this because he kept calling people subhuman, and I thought that was so mean. I was like, why is he calling JD Vance subhuman? Because it seems kind of like off-brand for him to be so angry, because he comes off very calm.
I think the term subhuman,
it was from like that 4chan thing of like Chad, Stacy.
Right.
Yeah, so I learned that from this. But,
yeah.
They were talking about that guy who pulled into some fast food drive-through and he was pantsless.
Oh, right.
And then he killed himself the next day. And then Clav was just like, yeah, I think killing yourself is stupid, and you can't just like pull up to a drive-through without your pants on. It's sexual harassment.
Yeah, he was
so
like,
I felt like that weirdly made
harassment.
him progressive, versus how most of his audience would probably talk about it.
Well, he's the same way with like anti-vax stuff. He says that like anti-vax is stupid. He's like, if you
because he's so into like PubMed and stuff.
So he's like, he's a believer in science or what have you. But you know what, it is inconsistent though, because one of the things that he said, he was like, I really don't like, or they're talking about body count and whether or not that matters, and a big reason as to why he thinks it matters in the case of women is because of this idea of pair bonding. And he's like, it's just a matter of statistics, like if your goal is a long-term relationship. But all of those same statistics that exist about having a ton of partners and
it's about like animals or voles or something.
No, there is stuff in regards to humans. There's this one guy, I'll have to circle back to find him, but he studies specifically human mating and everything like that.
David Buss?
He's a PhD. No. He's blonde. I forget what his name is. He's not in the red pill community.
Okay.
He's he shares like some, I guess you could say, views, but he definitely doesn't share their prescriptions, and he definitely critiques them more often than not. But a lot of these stats about like women having a ton of partners and then being less successful in long-term relationships also exist in the case of men. Yeah. So it's just like an inconsistency in terms of like where the quote unquote stats are. And I think that, Clavicular, I mean, he also just, I think, grants too much of this idea that like, for instance, he says that, spending time with a girl but not streaming it is like a waste of time.
He's like, you're going on a bowling date but not streaming it. What's the ROI?
Yeah, what's the ROI is the phrase, but it's like, why can't the ROI just be an enjoyment of it? You know, if you're doing all of these things to quote unquote better your life, like what is exactly the goal? And if the goal is, you know, your own sort of self-happiness, why can't you be, for instance, someone like Andrew Callahan who says he's content with how he looks? Do you think that was like a dishonest answer to say that he genuinely is content with how he looks?
It's hard to say, because like I feel like most people would probably go, maybe I would change this small thing. So I assume he's being like slightly comedic, or just, you know what I mean, completely like stonewalling him. Right. He's probably generally content. Right. Yeah, I agree. Like I'm sure Andrew, like he does even personal things to just make sure he looks okay. But it's probably not something that like possesses his mind for like fixations. But especially if you're a really successful YouTuber, he's got 3.5 million views. He's like he's regarded as like a pretty and he's not ugly big or journalist. Yeah. He, you know, if you have all of those things going for you, I'm sure your personal looks doesn't, you have all these people who love you, I'm sure that is, it would probably get in the way if he was better looking, because I feel like comedians also fare better when they're not super good looking, like guys and stuff. But I kept wondering while watching this, I was like, I do wonder what Clav enjoys, but because he doesn't seem to actually enjoy the streaming, like he says it makes him anxious and he needs to like drink to get through it and stuff, because he doesn't really like talking to people. So clearly he does that just for the pursuit of money. And then he says he doesn't really enjoy sleeping with the girls, so he like looks max is not for that. So I was wondering like what the actual enjoyment he gets. Maybe it's just like, he says it's not vanity, but it must be for the joy of like looking at himself. You know what I mean? But he also doesn't come off
feeling as though
Yeah.
you are successful in all of the meters and markers of success that
Yeah.
are I mean, some of them I'm sure like career and everything like that can be a personal goal that stems, you know, from within, but like the some of these other markers, it's like those are almost like societally imposed. And so like, for instance, he talks a lot about like you're just going to get made fun of if like you do this and you're not good looking, or you're going to be perceived differently. But it's like,
which is true.
Which is true. And there is like, he mentions the fact that there's like data and everything like that yeah, looking better will get you further in certain settings. But it's like, you're almost granting that like we should value the perception of others. Because like, what if you are truly content with who you are? And maybe this is a bit of a too like therapy speak or woke speak, but it's like, if you don't even grant those as being like things that you do care about or whatever, then all of a sudden your contentment can be just as like, you can be just as fulfilled and just as content as someone who does care about those and has achieved it, you know?
Yeah, it's hard to discern like what he thinks people should care about prescriptively, and then what he thinks like descriptively they do care about. So he's like, you should look smacks because it helps you in like the arenas of like dating, work, all these things. But then like you said, he's saying he doesn't actually care about other people or socializing with them. So is he only look smacksing and ascending because he's saying like based on these superficial things it helps, or is he saying like people even in an ideal world like should care about those things? I think he probably just really likes, also it comes off like researching, honestly. Like I bet that's his interest, is like staying home, researching, like studying.
Like,
and I think he's a nerd.
He maybe totally. He definitely seems like pretty chronically online, and maybe he likes the perception of being almost like an expert in this field, and maybe that's to some degree the frustration of like, why aren't you asking about my expertise? He wants to be perceived as like the ultimate,
like an intellectual kind of,
and he's like, it's not about this, it's like about just objectivity and results. But there's almost like an underlying normativity with even what you talk about, like results to what aim, you know?
And he says in this interview, for instance, because Andrew asks him like, who do you tend to get anxious around? And he was saying like high status people, and then it cuts to a clip of him with Andrew Tate, which I feel like is telling, because it's like, okay, it's not just that you feel like you're hanging out with Andrew Tate because it helps your stream. Like you actually think like he's more impressive, so you care about him. And it's like, why? Is it just because he has more followers? But it's like his followers are made up of people who you think are like these NPCs. So maybe that's like looking at it too far, but I'm just like, I'm like genuinely curious, like what does he see cool about Andrew Tate if he just sees all people as just like sheep and like, you know what I mean? Like, or
even like, his own followers and streamers or like viewers. Like I imagine like, you know, a lot of these people, not just Clav included, but like they look down on someone who's just a consumer and not a doer. They're like, you should be the one streaming, you should, but it's like,
makes no sense.
There has to be there has to be more consumers than there are creators. Like
exactly.
That's just like sort of the way it goes, you know? If you can only be one or the other, especially if it's this strict binary.
Especially with their content style. Like it's one thing if he's just posting like 30-minute video essays a week, because then you could still say, okay, well, it's fine to maybe watch like a few video essays a week. But for his content style, which relies on people watching him for like an average of like 6 hours a day, especially, like they are going to be living the lifestyles that he sees as like pathetic. And
exactly.
Non-ascending. You know?
No, it's an interesting question. I think, I think for him, it's just all vain. It's just like wanting to be success in the societal markers, and then to some degree having an internal drive of just being like ultimately very famous. I mean, it seemed like, I think even to because he says within the case of alcohol, you can do like these things that have a personal detriment so long as it's to a greater aim. There's like a justification to it. And it was the same thing with a lot of stimulants. He was like he engages in a lot of stimulants so that he can strain for long periods of time.
He was saying he did like meth just so he could like lose weight quickly because he was blowing up on social media, and he doesn't recommend it, but because he needed to like capitalize off his growth and stuff. Maybe I'm expecting too much meaning and self-awareness from a 19-year-old, but
Is he 19 still?
Maybe he's 20 now.
He's got to be at least 21 maybe. If he's in the club.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But
then I don't know, because Andrew, I think in this interview was like, it was like, what were you doing at like 20 in like when you're like 13, 14? And he was like, oh, that was like during COVID. But I guess COVID has been a while now.
That did
I
jar
forget.
me. Yeah.
Yeah.
When he said he was 13 during COVID. Yeah, I'm curious where his career will pivot because obviously the rest of them are doing the Jew stuff now, and Clavicular seems like averse to doing politics. And
right. Well, that's why he almost strikes me as different because he's kind of like his own entity or character. And I almost think that like a lot of his viewership is for the irony, whereas I think that more of like the Sneeko and Myron viewership are bought into an ideology that they have. You know?
Yeah, I think he's more of like a spectacle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like whereas they're the spectacle and it's a genuine message.
Yeah, like I feel like people actually get comfort out of like listening to Myron speak about these things, and Nick Fuentes too.
Yeah.
But no one would want to just see like, I don't know if people would watch like a 30-minute Clav video of him talking to the camera. They would obviously like the first maybe like 50 to 100 times because it's still the spectacle of like what is he gonna say, because every other word he says is so like not even Gen Z, like Gen Alpha speak. Yeah. But then after that, I wonder what his like audience capture would be.
Gen Alpha speak.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you have on your mind you want to talk about?
Because let me see.
You brought your whole research list.
I just brought like, I have so many random notes from over the years of just like misandry. So let me see if there's anything worth spreading to your audience.
The misandrous section of the podcast.
Yeah. It's just shitting on me of loneliness. Should we talk about like sex work and OnlyFans a bit?
Yeah, sure.
What's your opinion about it?
What's my opinion about it?
Yeah.
I think it's almost like too broad of a question in my view, because I just have
Do you think guys who pay for OnlyFans are pathetic?
No, just because more like, if anything, it's probably more redeemable to pay for it than to just stream it for free. Yeah, because you know exactly where your I guess you don't know exactly where your dollars are going to, but you can be more confident about the money being directed towards the woman rather than to like so many third-party corporations that are paying for ads or what have you. Yeah, I mean, my view is just that it's it's one of those things that like it's going to exist in society no matter what, and so I think we just have to alleviate the opportunities for exploitation as much as possible, and that's going to come through regulation. But outside of that, it's like I don't see it necessarily as this giant moral decay either. I think like in large part, Jasmine, our friend of the show, talks about this. I do think that like people who have a problem with it more often than not are those who have moral incongruence with it. It seems, and yeah, that's pretty much my view. That's like the extent to it.
Yeah. Well, you were saying like because it's gonna exist regardless, they should like make sure it's coming from like clean ethical sources. But even like but do you think it's wrong? But then it's just like a necessary evil kind of, or?
No, I don't think it's wrong. I think there's there's definitely a lot of like it's like I would say that there's maybe an undue amount of exploitation even relative to other economic fields, but I also just think that broadly about a lot of industries. So it's like I see it more so as another industry, and I think that I guess I'm just pro protection of the workers, and specifically. Do
you think it's cheating for guys to watch porn in relation? I think this is the first question I ever asked you.
Oh,
if you think it's cheating for guys to watch porn. And don't give me some answer of like, if the boundaries that they set.
That is going to be my ultimate answer. I think that people have different interpretations, I guess, of what cheating is. Like, I mean, I can certainly empathize with the view that it is. But I don't have necessarily a strict view on it either way. Sorry,
cheating's a boring word, I guess. Is it like, do you think it's
morally wrong?
Yeah, in the same way, like technically it's not cheating for Myron Gaines in the Manosphere to do one-sided opens, but I would say like, oh come on, like that's pretty fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Cause like I don't think I would have like a qualm with it on my end, but I can understand why a person, and I would consider myself a pretty monogamous person. Um, but I think it almost feels like different when they're like a performer, because the one-sided open relationship thing, it's like it just feels more personal because they're actually having sex with other individuals, they're engaging in something, whereas I view almost like or
Porn.
Yeah, porn stars as like doing just a performance just to like help you get off, but but there would be levels to it, right? So maybe in that case, specifically seeking out a specific OnlyFans girl and paying her and doing like messaging or like something to that degree, or like spending a lot of money on like a live streamer, or like maybe there's various degrees, but it would be the same thing as like even just other interactions. Like I would think it would be really weird if like my partner was like commenting and liking every post of a video of some guy creator, and like DM sliding in his, even if it has nothing to do with like relational stuff, even it's genuinely about the content or work this person does, like there's just degrees of separation.
It's only if it's like a repeated person.
Yeah,
kind of.
exactly. That's almost when it becomes worse or weird.
So if it's like purely physical, it's fine, but then if it feels like
maybe
emotional, like they're crushing on them or whatever.
Yeah, maybe that is part of it. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, my views on it, so I won't force them down your audience's throat.
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, okay.
What has your perception of being on OnlyFans changed, or maybe even your relationship with it changed now, being in a relationship?
Has my perception of only changed? Yeah, like my partner doesn't care at all. Like it's funny because I was messaging Andrew Wilson to try to get him. I think I showed you some of these texts. I was trying to get him to do a debate with me. And I mentioned being engaged, and he was like, the wedding's not going to work out. And I was like, what? And he was like, think about it. Do you really think a professor would marry a prostitute? And like, I ate it up because like, a
professor would marry a prostitute.
I love it because like, I seem as like my I seem as like my frenemy.
Yeah, right.
And I just love how like sometimes cartoon villain he can be.
Yeah.
To me specifically, so I like when he acts like this. And he was like he's like, let me tell you this, if the wedding happens, I'll be there, I'll pay for my flight wherever it is. And I was like, Jack Andrews coming to a wedding? He's like, what? I'm like, yeah, he's coming. Like,
no way.
Yeah. Just so and then he was like, Andrew was like, prove me wrong right now, like you guys are both atheists, like go get a courthouse marriage right now to prove me wrong. And I was like, Jack, we went to the courthouse. He's like, I'm not marrying you to courthouse, you can prove Andrew Wilson wrong. And I was like, please.
To prove him wrong in a debate.
But it's so funny because if I had to list like the top 1,000 things Jack and I have ever argued about, like OF would never be on the list.
Right,
like it's not, it's like funny to us that like people would ever think, like when I went on Tim Pool and Myron was like telling me the same thing, he was like, your relationship's not going to work out because it'll get in his head, like the OF stuff. It's just, it's so funny to us because like he's the first like properly liberal guy. I haven't dated many guys, but he's the first like full liberal guy I've dated. And I've dated guys who've had to like repress the fact
you're like
I do
to the right of
OnlyFans
him on a lot of issues. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't think
he's definitely more woke than me, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm definitely more feminist, but I think I'm more feminist than most people.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the other guys I've dated, like they've had to like repress that I do OF and stuff versus like I'm starting this thing with Playboy, and he just finds it cool to tell his friends like, oh, my fiance is like gonna shoot for Playboy. Like he just like he likes talking about this stuff, you know what I mean, which is like refreshing for me because I feel like I've had to kind of like be coy about it in past relationships. But it's like, not only is it not something to be embarrassed about, but it's like there are some guys who find it like cool and also hot, you know, that if their girlfriend's like posting like, you know, like hot pics on Instagram or so. I'm making it sound like he's a cuck or something. That's not what I mean. I just mean like they're not like ashamed of it or, you know, prudish about it. Because like one of my best friends, she was like texting me today telling me that like this like 40-year-old she's been talking to, for instance, like she's a full-time model, and he was like, yeah, you need to like quit modeling and all these things, and she doesn't even do like nudity, she's Mormon and stuff, and you know, there's some guys out there who are just so against all those things. So I feel not lucky, but it feels compatible that I finally, you know, I'm seeing someone who doesn't care about those things. Because I had the perception that I thought maybe if a guy's conservative or liberal, I thought they all kind of cared deep down.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, is that kind of what you meant in your question? Or
yeah, no, I think even like I've like discussed this a little bit with friends like years ago, just like, oh, like would you would you ever date someone who like did OnlyFans and I think a lot of guys answers degree on basically the types of content, or like, you know, the varying degrees of like how much you know, like they wouldn't want the person sleeping with other people, obviously, you know, but yeah, interesting. Do
you feel like you'd be fine with anything up to proper porn?
I don't know. I think it would be one of the, this is kind of interesting, but it would be one of those things where they would have to be almost doing it before I met them. Or like I would have to be going into it. I don't know why. I don't know if I have like a well thought out reason as to why this is, but it would almost be more concerning to me, or I'd be less okay with it if they just decided like in our relationship.
I think that makes sense, because let's say like my partner had like a female best friend who he already was friends with before we met. It's one thing, but let's say we're dating and then suddenly he becomes best friends with the girl. Right. Like I wouldn't be like, you can't, but it feels different if they become close with someone after you start dating who's opposite sex, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You know? I agree with that too. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's definitely, because you would hope that they just like maybe just operate a little bit differently when they're with you. And yeah, I guess another thing would be like, I would hope, or it would seem to me that they would already like have a career outside of OF, so to like just decide on that. Yeah,
it would come off more like they're doing it more for like the wrong reasons, kind of like validation or something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you had a boyfriend who was already clubbing and stuff, or if they got into it after. Yeah.
Right. I have an interesting question actually. Because you talked about how you think that like Redpill and tradcon are basically two sides of the same coin. Do you feel that way about pink pill and trad wives?
What is pink pill?
Okay, so pink pill, it's a bit more difficult to...
Is that like sprinkle?
What's that?
Is that like the idea of like all men cheat to make sure like you're getting a lot of money and like gifts from him?
Yeah, it's definitely like girl, be in your feminine, like let him, like men it's men's responsibility to do this. It's like almost like, yeah, it's the same sort of content that reinforces I guess many of the ideas between men and women, that like they ought to be the provider. Like he ain't a man if he's not you know, taking you out to this spot or whatever. Like you need to find a partner to like
I'm against I'm definitely pro closer to 50-50 in relationships, not because I'm thinking like, oh well, if women want equality in these other realms, then they need to, you know, prove it. They can't just cherry pick. I think just because it's in the best interest of the women. Like I think if your partner is like spoiling you all the time, like you're just less likely to walk away, for instance, if he not just cheats, but like I think it comes from me being such a rad femme that I just want women to always have like as much recourse as possible to walk away. Right. And let's say, for instance, like you're with a guy who's taking you out on trips, and you know he pays your rent, he bought the apartment you're in, like it's in his name and stuff, and let's say he doesn't like fully cheat, but you go through his phone one day and you see that he like slid up on a girl's story, and it said something that you know is flirty, but it wasn't completely over the line, that you found out that he fucked someone else. I think you're so much more likely, if he's paying for you, to justify to yourself of being like, oh, I'll just tell him and give him another warning, versus like, let's say you have your own apartment, you have your own bank account. I feel like you're so much more likely to walk away at the first sign of something like that. Right. You know, so just for like women's own ability to like walk away, I don't think they should be pink pilled, less so because I think it's dehumanizing to the guy or seeing him as too transactional
as a wallet, or that's sort of the thing is it's like don't like you know, it's there, it's almost like the inverse where it's like at women like you should like yes you can be able to like pursue your own career, pursue your own thing or anything like that, but like your value is in your beauty, so maximize what you get out. It's almost, you know how like the red pill tries to get men to maximize what they can get out of women, which is like basically sex.
Yeah.
And it's like you can do that by maximizing your wealth and your power and your status.
Yeah.
For the women, it's almost like the inverse where it's like withhold that and maximize how much you can get out in terms of money and what he's going to be able to provide for you.
I think it's like BS because I think they're lying to themselves. I feel like they're putting on this like femme fatale personality and acting as if they're emotionally detached. And I don't buy it. Like I've seen girls specifically in LA do this where they pretend they're with him in like this detached way and he's like their wallet, but at the end of the day like they are pretty much emotionally attached, you know what I mean? And they are gonna be like dependent on stuff. What was I gonna say? I also just hate the whole like raise your standards culture. Not like the idea of actually raising your standards, but I hate the culture around it, of the whole like don't accept the bare minimum thing of like you need a guy who takes you out, you know, on this like great date or like spends this amount on you, because I think that they end up like actually lowering their standards. Like that woman like Sadia Khan, do you know what I'm talking about? That like dating coach woman who always tells women to raise their standards. Like she was just recently caught being a mistress to some billionaire, and there was this leaked voice memo of her like saying to his wife like fuck you, I'm gonna like keep fucking your husband or like something like that. But it's like because the only thing she selects for is that status symbol of like billion, it's like she will forever pretty much just be a mistress, you know. So I think they lower their standards so much.
I think I don't know who that person is, but it sounds like they would fall under like this pink pill sort of content category. Where it's like, you know, I've seen a lot of that too, and I used to get even frustrated, and like looking back, like there's still. So for instance, like there was this huge discourse about like coffee dates on TikTok.
What was
for
it?
instance, on coffee dates.
Like just about whether they're good or bad.
Yeah, whether, and it's just like and then sometimes, or even, but sometimes it even goes a step further where it's like, if he even takes you to just drinks, like that's like a bad sign. But then I get varying perspectives from women where it's like no, I want it to be more of a casual conversation or more of a casual first date so I can get to know you, so we're not committed to dinner. Whereas other women are like, it only makes sense for you to take me out to a nice dinner because that's what I'm worth, you know, and to say that and to take me out to anything less is to say I'm worth less. I guess the lame nuanced perspective is like you should probably you know, offer dates in the way that you think your partner would want to, you know, have a date go.
This isn't even like based in that, but I personally just prefer drinks dates just because I find it stressful to have to like eat and talk at the same time. But I think that's like I probably have Asperger's. Like I hate doing dinner dates or any type of food in the beginning. I mean, like I just find it stressful. I think the issue is too, like there's a lot of guys who pretend, like for instance, like on the first several dates maybe they'll take you out to a really nice restaurant, but then once you're their girlfriend, then suddenly they kind of reveal like, hey, I can't afford this anymore, like can we stay in and do this thing, which isn't a big deal, but I do think because of that culture, girls can also again like end up getting the reverse result where they end up getting kind of like catfished by someone whose front loads how much they're paying for you, and then they've like rug pulled it kind of. Like I've had that happen, not with my current relationship, but like in the past.
I could see that happening. I mean, I've definitely like I've almost like I'll sometimes go like if I had just start seeing a person, sometimes I'll go like from like just drinks to maybe like it'll go up in price to like the third, and then it will like tick back down once I get to know them, because I'm like still trying to impress them, and then after I get to know them, it's like they know who I am, you know, and everything like that. But it's like I think a lot of it is just like almost the social expectations of like, hey, I want to, you know, show and court you to some degree.
Do you feel like wait, where'd you live before LA?
The Bay Area and then San Diego.
Okay.
But I mean, mostly I just dated between the Bay and I mostly dated in LA, quite frankly, because I spent most of college in the Bay Area with a girlfriend. So
do you feel like in LA like the girls Like, have you ever done like a first date with someone that isn't like taking them out for drinks or dinner and just like going on a walk or something free, or not really?
I for sure probably have, but I think if I did that, it was because I was skeptical as to whether or not I'm gonna like them.
Okay.
Whereas if I was like almost like gung ho from them from the start, like I'm at least gonna get drinks. But then other times I'm just also like, I'm gonna try this, because I just didn't know what like they necessarily wanted from the date. Because it's like that's another thing. It's like, even just asking like, what type of date would you like? Whereas like some
girls are like turned off by that.
Yeah, they're like, no, you should be like,
pick me up at
I'm gonna be here at this time, and then I'm getting the reservation, and it's like, yes, like take care of me. See, that's what I also mean, I guess, when I'm referring to like pink pill, is it's like,
I find that
it's like, no,
off-putting.
It's like, no, I want you to have like some autonomy, and
I think it's girls. I think a lot of the time it's them being stupid and thinking like these signposts are signs that like he's gonna be this type of guy, which are really stupid because do you know that girl like Wizard Liz?
That name sounds really familiar.
She did those like I want to see if you recognize her face. Just look her up on YouTube real quick.
Okay.
She's like I guess
wanting nothing gives you everything.
Yeah, like
your partner is cheating.
It's because her partner, like her baby daddy, cheated or whatever. But basically, she was really, really huge in like women's spaces. Like I would see her all over TikTok. Yeah, and all her videos were pretty much about like raising your standards, like don't settle for the bare minimum, whatever. So her partner did all the right signposting. He only followed her on Instagram. These things that girls would be like, as he should. But then it was caught. Yeah, she was like pregnant. With his child, and he was cheating on her. So I think girls just sometimes stupidly think that like if he only follows her, or if he like does all these certain things, like I've seen girls on TikTok, you've probably seen this, where they say when a girl asks him out, does he say sorry I have a girlfriend, or no I have a girlfriend? Because if he says sorry, it's a bad sign. And I just feel like girls are so sometimes
keen on like the small, like almost like,
I think they're so paranoid of being cheated on, because I'm sure if it's happened to them that they're like think that like they look for these small signs. But it's so stupid, because I really do think like if a guy wants to cheat on you, he will. He could be like the most loyal presenting person, and I think those are such stupid signposts. If anything, you should base it off of like if he's cheated before, probably.
And if anything, if it's a guy that is like very shallow in terms of what he wants out of a woman who's doing her own form of like I'm in my feminine, I'm in my or whatever.
I think the type of guy who's like be ready at 7 is the type of guy who's more likely to cheat on you.
Right, exactly.
Like traditional guys are more likely to cheat on you because they're the ones who are going to subscribe to the idea of like men and women are fundamentally different. We complement each other. And therefore, my sex drive is different, and
my cheating doesn't actually
affect my provisioning of her and like providing and protecting. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's kind of like who's one of the guys in the documentary, the Louis Theroux documentary, whose wife is like a part of this whole, or she lets him do a one.
Justin Waller's wife.
Justin Waller's wife. Yeah, and it reminds me of like what you were saying earlier when I initially asked you about pink pill. Is like you're like it makes it easier for them to walk away if they do things more 50-50 because she is like unironically like she has nothing to leave with if she ever leaves.
Exactly. They're not legally married.
Yeah.
They have 2 kids together. Like their house looked amazing. Like she's never gonna walk away.
Basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even obviously she accepts him cheating, but like even like let's say he were to like put his hands on her, like she's not walking away.
Right. Yeah. She's gonna at the very least she's gonna be able to rationalize it more because what it would mean to walk away would mean to have nothing
literally
to come out of it. Yeah,
because she doesn't work, right?
No, I don't know. Literally just
entirely.
Exactly. And she was like doubling down on how, because to some degree they're like, look, this is just the way that we work, but then she's like, well, I would argue that this is the way it like truly should be, or like this is our nature, to various degrees. So there is like this underlying prescription
and it's weird because it usually comes from like cynicism of men. Like for instance, she talked about how in past relationships she had partners who weren't honest, so she probably thinks like all men cheat, I might as well know about it, like you can't rob an empty house. But it's weird because it's like if you are so cynical of men, like why put yourself in a position to not walk away? Because if you think men, all of them are capable of cheating, to me I'm like, okay, then you also, I would think they're capable of doing other forms of like abuse to you as well. So like why put yourself like again at their mercy.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. The cynicism, it's funny you say that because I see that happen in the inverse with the red pill community where they're like, look, these women, they just want you for a check and nothing else. They just want you to be 6 foot. And it's like, there's undeniably like women. I mean, even
There
on the
are.
show, like in the documentary, like some of these women like walk face first into a trap. Like he has to be above 6 feet. The girl said he has to be black, and she's like, oh, at least 300K a year. And it's like you just walked into the trap of just having like these unrealistic standards, but it's like these men are also selecting for that. Like these are the types of women that they're dating, and so it's like they have this. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy because it's like that's the type of women that they go after, women that care about that those sorts of markers, you know.
Yeah, I have friends like that. Like our friend who we went out with the other day is kind of like that.
Yeah.
I was like telling Jack, because I feel like half the friends I introduce him to, like the women, he thinks like he has this like view of LA as so shallow, and like the women are like that because whenever they're complaining about not being able to find a guy, he's like, well, what are you looking for? And they're like 6 foot, like at least 300K a year.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of them like actually wants that for the sake of it, or if it's just because it's like the status symbol to show their friends or kind of like flex on social media. You know what I mean? Like, I don't actually think that's the prerequisite for them being attracted to someone, because they obviously entertain, you know, like I have friends who say that, but then they end up crying over a guy who works like the front desk at a gym. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree. It is there. I don't know how much it's actually reflected in reality. Cause like even just like dating stats generally back the idea that people usually date within their age range, date within their age bracket or their income bracket. So I'm sure it's definitely exacerbated by like what they want versus like what actually plays out in practice. But yeah, it's undeniable. I guess that there's like this like certain sect, but maybe simultaneously there's a lot of men who want like a woman who's cool with them going sleeping out or doing, you know, threesomes or whatever.
I met this guy, we went on like a double date like 2 nights ago with my friend, like the model girl I was thinking about, who's dating the guy who says like don't model. It was like me, Jack, her, him, and then his random like friend who lies about his age on dating apps. Like it's so weird. Like
younger or older? Like he goes older?
No, he puts that he's like much younger. So for instance, like we asked him, we were like, oh, how old are you? And he goes, oh, I'm 21. And we were like, when were you born? And he's so stupid. He goes, January 25th, 1998. We were like, what? And he showed us his dating profiles because he was like asking us. He was like, what do you guys think of my profiles? And he puts like 21, 22, 23. He's 30 basically, and he lies about it. And I was like saying to my friend's date, I was like, this is your friend, like what do you think about this? And he's like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, you know, like I think a lot of guys do think like dating is so like girls are so unreasonable that they feel justified like not just lying about their height, which is like
right.
I personally don't care about height, but I would care if the guy lied about it. Just because.
Also, can you imagine going out with a guy and he says he's 21 and like maybe on the 3rd date you learn that he was lying about that? Like,
I think it's so predatory, especially to put like, it's one thing, it's still bad, but let's say you were 40 and put 30, but I'm like, you're hitting like preying on college girls. Yeah. You know?
And if anything, exactly. But also if anything, I would hope that it would actually have the reverse impact of making those girls less want to date you because they realize you're lying about something like your age. Like, I don't know.
He probably just keeps the lie going for as long as possible, or maybe his goal is just to like sleep with them or something.
Yeah, I guess if it's just for a hookup, but then then it definitely is. But then it also goes, I guess, flies in the face of this idea that like, well, women want older men, you know?
Yeah. I don't know like what the stats are and like what women prefer and stuff, but I personally wouldn't date past like someone like 10 years older. Yeah, no, just because same. For like older, you know.
Have you seen the new show on Netflix, Age of Attraction?
No, what's that?
There's this new show. It's like a dating show where they take a bunch of people age. I think the youngest is 22 and the oldest is 60. And
is it mostly men who are the older ones or no?
No, there's a good balance. But like it's all age brackets, and so they like let everyone meet each other, go out on like speed dates and everything like that, and then they can progressively like get closer and closer. And then if they both decide that they really like each other, then they commit to each other. and then they can but once they commit, then they can reveal their age, and then once they commit, they have to go live with each other.
So
for
it's
like
full blind dates, like they don't see each other's faces.
No, they see each other's faces, but they just don't know how old they are. They're not allowed to talk about their age.
But they can surmise it, no?
Yeah, but like some
of them look
way,
okay.
yeah, like or they just assume a little bit, yeah. So there's cases of like a woman, yeah, being I think like in her mid 50s and the guy is like 27, and then there was a instance of the girl being 27 and the guy ended up being 60, and he did look really good for his age. Like he did look like probably early 50s, which is still wild, like 27 and 50, but like he ended up being 60. And
did they go through with it, like most of them?
They did go through with it, but some of them obviously fall apart because of age differences, and then it's very interesting because then some of them start meeting each other's like family and everything like that. And I think the show showcases the more extreme examples. Like I'm sure there were probably a lot of normal age range relationships, because the idea isn't like you can now date someone who is way older than you. The point is like, is dating blind to age, basically, like to what degree is it blind to age? And so it's like you're still dating, you can end up falling for someone who is just a year older than you or even the same age as you, but like it's like that's no longer a part of your perception when meeting them.
I don't know what your opinion on this is, but I actually don't think it's I think it's pathetic if like an older guy selects for younger girls,
right? Yeah,
like I do generally think those types of guys who I meet are kind of like lame for the most part.
100%.
And I think it's stupid for the girl to get with them, because it's like every day this guy has shown you that like each day he's going to obviously become less attracted to you throughout this relationship as you age. But I don't think like so long as the guy's not lying about his age, I don't see it through the lens of like if it's an 18-year-old girl and 40-year-old guy, maybe 18 is different. Like if it's a 21-year-old girl and 40-year-old guy, I don't see it so much as like she's being taken advantage of. I feel like for the most part, like they pretty much know what they're doing. Like when I see Tobey Maguire, like the Spider-Man guy, he's 50, he's dating a 20-year-old. I think it's unaesthetic because it's aesthetically wrong, because like it makes him look more pathetic and like at rock bottom, and it makes her look obviously superficial. But I think obviously like if I were to weigh who's using who more, who's taking advantage of each other more, it's like obviously she doesn't like him for him, as well. Right. And I think like these 21-year-old girls, I don't vilify them, but I do think like also they know what they're doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say they're being taken advantage of, and I think that becomes less so the case, especially once you get into your 20s relative to where you are when you're like 18 or 19. But yeah, I would definitely agree that I would have a lot of concern about the intentions or motivations, especially for guys who select for it. Like it's one thing to you meet someone, you really like them, they end up happening to be like relatively younger to where you're at, and like that's just kind of the way the cards fell. But it's another thing to say like, oh, I prefer dating women who are 10 years younger than me, and to select for it, because even just as like a guy who is 27, the idea of talking to a girl who's 21, 22, or even 23,
really,
like, I think that like they would have to be very, I mean, it's cliche, mature for their age, exactly. And even when I'm out at a bar, like I feel like some of the bars that I used to go to, I'm like, geez, did everyone are a lot younger people going to this bar now, or was I just at this age and it was the latter, but I feel like way less inclined to like approach, or obviously this was when I was single, but or any of that, just because it's like I think that you just have so much like less in common. But it's not like common, because this was the thing that Andrew got in an argument with Oliver. It's like it's not necessarily like, oh, having like things in common. Like I go to music festivals, like I'm sure a lot of young 20-year-old girls also go to music festivals, but it's like it's just like there's just more depth, I think, to a person as they grow older to some degree, and it gets less so in many ways like as you get older. So for instance, I just think the difference between like 25 to 30 is going to be less dramatic than 20 to 25. But there's definitely I also would feel embarrassed, like if I brought, especially like a 22 or 21-year-old, like around to my friends, and they were been like, "You're dating a 21-year-old,"
even if they weren't in college or anything.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I would definitely feel a little embarrassed about that. And I think in the back of their mind they'd be like, "Evan, what the fuck are you doing?"
No, I do think there's something like psychologically wrong with the type of guy who would do that for sure.
Right.
Like I do think they're creepy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I just wouldn't say the girl is necessarily a victim, I guess is my point. But that guy is still like, there's probably something wrong with him.
Right.
Like socially.
Yeah, no, totally. Like I had a scenario in which it was like I met the person and then we like got along with them, and we still ended up not saying, because she was still in college. I was like 25 at the time, she was 20. And so like even that was like too much of
pushing it.
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily that it was a deal breaker, but because of the place in life we were, it became a deal breaker. But it was more like it was out of happenstance rather than like fundamentally or out of principle, you know?
So then how, because you wouldn't go down to like 23, how high up would you potentially or have gone?
I probably would date like maybe like 4 to 5 years. I think 4 to 5 years both directions is me. I wouldn't necessarily have a moral qualm with going longer than that, but that's just like I just can't imagine specifically searching for more than 5 to 6 years, I guess.
Yeah, well, I get that for like long-term dating, for like fertility, but even for just like casually.
Oh yeah, casual is different. Casual is different. Yeah, I would have like I have way less of a I would have way less of an issue of like, yeah, like even like being at this age, yeah, and like casual with someone who's 6-7 years younger or older.
Wait, why is it less like?
Because it's
because it's not the moral thing, it's just the like,
right, exactly, like I don't have a moral qualm with it. It's the compatibility thing, and because that one, it's almost more honest, like the guys who go after young girls, it's a lot of it's for physical sexual reasons, whereas like if you are just doing it for a physical sexual casual way, then
you're giving her the impression like you're gonna like her even when she ages or something, right?
Or you're just giving, it's just like, yeah, like I can't imagine, like, yeah, especially being 50, if Tobey Maguire is dating like a young 20-year-old, like I can't imagine he's like, yeah, this girl's just so brilliant and interesting, and like, and like maybe that's rude. Maybe I'm sure this woman's fantastic, but how brilliant or interesting can you be at the age of 20 unless you're like a intellectual, you know?
But it's weird because it's also not a status symbol. Like no one looks at it and thinks like, ooh, good for him. Like he's hanging out with the 21, like with the 20-year-old. So I wonder like what the point is, but maybe it is just like for the like hedonistic.
I think it is 100% hedonistic.
But then it's also like, isn't it like diminishing returns? Because I saw someone tweet being like, I don't understand why a guy would want to date a 20-year-old. Like I don't want to hear her like bitch about her roommate or like her college roommate or something.
Well, I'm sure it's like not just any 20-year-old, you know. He's not gonna just pick up just a random any hot 20-year-old off of a college campus.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure she has like enough going for her, and like clearly she's in enough famous spaces to have had met him, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
But nonetheless, it's like, yeah, I also agree that on the diminishing returns about bitching about a college roommate. That's a funny way of putting it.
Because I've seen like guys say, for instance, it's contradictory that girls think it's predatory for like older men to date 18-year-olds, for instance. Like they bitch about like Leonardo DiCaprio,
right?
But then, for instance, generally speaking, they're okay with maybe like an 18-year-old starting an OnlyFans account and then like a 70-year-old talking to her on there and paying for it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're not pro like raising the age restrictions on there. And
right, I think advise that 18-year-olds not start OnlyFans accounts. Yeah. But I think it's a different question on like the legality. Like I think that it's a similar thing. I mean, even with dating, like I don't think that it should be illegal for a fit 45-year-old to date like a 19-year-old, but I would definitely have a moral qualms with it. Yeah. I just think the law, like when it comes to like age restrictions in the law, like I think we have to decide as a society, there has to be like a specific point where it's like you're an adult, and then from then on everything is legally permissible. Yeah. The state shouldn't be getting involved per se, you know. Obviously certain issues of exploitation to some degree.
Would you say like Jay Wall's wife is being taken advantage of, or do you feel like do you pity her, or what do you think of that?
I think that her situation is definitely the result of a lack of self-respect. I think she's old enough to like not being like fully like, I guess, quote unquote exploited.
Yeah.
I just think that maybe she just lacks self-respect, and I think that Jay Wall or whatever, if that's his name, Jay Wall,
Justin Waller.
Jay Wall. I don't I think that he probably lacks respect for her.
Do you think like if they were properly married, same arrangement, but she had a prenup, or they didn't have a prenup, then it'd be more it'd be self-respecting.
It would be a little bit more self-respecting,
but still not, just because of the one-sided.
Yeah, I think that like that's such a crazy way to rationalize, because I do think she would ultimately only be allowing for that to happen because he's rich and he's providing for stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like that to me seems like so ridiculous that like normally that's something that you normally would not be okay with, you're okay with because the person is providing these like material things. It's not like, I could only assume that she wouldn't be okay with that dynamic, even if the guy was providing, but just not nearly to the same degree or extent. Like if he's just like a middle class guy, maybe earning like 80 to 90K a year, I don't think that she would be okay with it.
It's the fact he's worth like, what did they say, like $30 million?
Yeah, exactly.
Or something.
And that's just like it's a wild thing to trade off, because it's like presumably you being upset with your partner sleeping with other people has to some degree, and having that boundary. I know boundary, I think, is supposed to be like a term only used for like restricting yourself, but it's not like supposed to be applied to like the way that you want your partner to do. But anyway, total side tangent. I think that you being upset over that is mostly rooted in like some respect or some level of self-respect, of like having standards of what you want your relationship to be like. And so being willing to violate that for something is like material. And I
was surprised by how like normal she seemed. Like I thought she was going to be more like a typical LA Miami personality type,
right,
like more bimbo, but she seemed like pretty normal and grounded.
I thought the Myron's girlfriend seemed pretty normal too.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah. And I almost felt bad for her. It's like she just feels, I feel like maybe he is, genuinely probably just like kind and chill with her, but he's like, hey babe, like I have to do this, like it's my thing. And she's like, okay. And she's probably just happy with the fact that she has like a guy who provides, but is like, rationalizing it in her head.
I was surprised why she would agree to it. Like with Jay Wall's wife, it's like he's worth 30 mil and they live in that lavish house. Yeah. But Myron like lives in the Fresh and Fit studio. So I'm like,
he lives in the Fresh and Fit studio.
Yeah, I was like, she did all of this to just like live at a place where he streams out of 5 days a week. And
wait, does he actually live in the Fresh and Fit studio?
Yeah. Maybe they changed it, but like his studio is his apartment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Damn.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it to some degree makes sense, but yeah, but I'm sure he's still wealthy, or still rich.
I just feel like she could have gotten a better one-sided deal with someone else, but maybe she does genuinely like him.
I don't know. You think that like she could get an even richer partner basically with the same sort of dynamic?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's a million fucking women in Miami competing for that sort of role.
For Myron?
No, not for Myron, but like for guys, for the other guys that are above Myron's status who are okay with doing the same sort of thing.
That's true, yeah. I think they broke up now.
Yeah, they mentioned that at the end of the documentary.
Yeah.
They're like,
he says it was because like she wanted a family. Like he was on the Tim Pool panel I did, and someone asked him like why he and his girlfriend broke up, and he was like, she wanted to start kids, and I told her like, we got to tell these Jews, blacks, and women what's up, so like I'm not ready, I got to keep fighting like the good fight or something.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. All right, well, that's probably a good place to end it.
Sounds good.
Let everyone know where they can find you.
They can find me on all platforms at Farha Khalidi, including onlyfans.com/Farha Khalidi.
All right. Subscribe.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.